What's going on, everybody? Time to meet in the break room. It's lunchtime with Clydesdale. What is going on? Train to Live, Jody, Lynn, Meredith. Good to see you all in the chat already. I'm so glad to be back to our regularly scheduled program. We're going to talk about that in a second. But Train to Live says, oh, sorry, my mouse ran out of juice today. I just want to thank Scott. I started watching Shrinking. It is so good. It is so good. So good. And they're coming back for another season. Cannot wait for that. And I think they're bringing in, I read somewhere, they're bringing in like another big name star for the next season. Should be interesting. But last night, The Bear came back. Been a big fan of that show. Was not a fan of season 3. But season 4 started up last night. So went back and rewatched the last episode of season 3. So I could just remember kind of everything that happened. Watched the first episode of season 4. From the beginning of the show, they do this thing where Carm rubs his chest. And it's a way of apologizing without having to say it to people in the kitchen. And there's a moment where him and Sid are in the kitchen. He makes that move. And I truly feel it's the creators of the show apologizing for last season, because they talk about how they can't deal with the chaos. And last season, season 3 was all chaos. And it was almost like an apology to the fans and the viewers saying, we're sorry, we're going to get back to what it is we do best. And I thought the first episode was awesome and back to season 1, season 2 level. So excited to see the rest of the season. All 10 episodes are available now on Hulu through FX. And my wife and I have made a conscious decision not to just super binge it, but to kind of savor this one, because this could be the last season. So we're going to try to take it slow. Season 3 we did in like 2 days, and then it's all over and you've got nothing to watch and nothing to talk about. So we're going to try to take this one a little bit slow. But glad you like Shrinking. I'm super excited for the next season. I think it's one of the best shows that's come out in a long time. It's funny, it's endearing, it's got all the emotions in one big show. So glad you like that. Train to Live. Corey, Jay Birch, thanks for joining. Good to see you guys. Jay Birch got all trimmed up this week, looking like a sexy retired teacher now. So there's that. Allergies are bad here today. I'm doing laundry, so it might be from that, because all my dog's hair gets on everything. So when I clean the lint trap every time, I have to like breathe in all the dog hair and the dander, and I'm allergic to that as well as all the external stuff. So just trying to make it through the day. So yesterday we had Pete Shaw on. We talked MetFix. Jody made it abundantly clear that she would rather have a regular lunch show than Pete Shaw, but I thought it was important to kind of understand what MetFix was. And then after the fact, I'm learning all this stuff about how people believe that Greg isn't really as involved in MetFix as we thought, or maybe as I thought, and that he's more involved with Broken Science than he is with MetFix. And if that's the case, then a lot of the basis of what it's about makes less sense to me. And I kind of wish I would have known that going in. I would have phrased the questions differently. I know early on I let Pete talk for longer periods of time, and I thought he got more technical the longer I gave him to talk. So I tried to shorten it down as the interview went on and ask more questions and kind of keep him more layman's terms, general, if I could. But whenever you're talking about the science of nutrition and the details of it, it gets a little heady, um, and so I think it got better as the interview went on for sure. Um, but I'm not. I hope you guys got something out of it. I surely did. I find that stuff fascinating. I would really like to know. Really like to know Greg's opinion on the major factor of the flexible metabolic conditions, meaning like, does your body use fat or does your body use carbs to burn energy, back and forth? Because that seems to be controversial with seminar staff members and what's happening with MetFix. And I'd like to understand that a little bit more. But I now have a good relationship with Pete. Maybe we can have him on one more time and I can ask that question or ask other questions that you guys might have. Train to Live. I'm interested if they want elite athletes to apply their model to their own nutrition, since they brought up Jason Hopper as a comparison. They don't. I mean, Pete is very aware that athletes, I think what they don't like is that athletes are using refined sugar, extra sugars to sustain themselves through a weekend instead of just the normal sugar that's in a potato or pasta or whatever. The gummy bear example is what he kept coming up with. That I don't think he even thinks elite athletes should be doing that. But I think at this point with the Jason Hopper quote was that there are a lot of people who go to CrossFit and now want to be like Jason Hopper, and it's pulling people away from what a normal you and me non-athlete, non-elite athlete would do for their nutrition throughout the day. I feel like he made it seem like all CrossFitters look to elite athletes as an example for their own nutrition, and I don't think that's true most of the time. And I tried to make that point. That I started CrossFit in 2011. I've never looked to an elite athlete and what they eat and thought that's what I should be doing. Never. Bag of candy is easy, I guess. No meal prep. Yeah, easy to pack, easy to. But he used examples of walking into gyms as a seminar staff member and seeing like jars of gummy bears on the counter and felt that was a bad example. Donuts, things like that. So Larry Young, I feel like the more I consume, it all boils down to the same concepts. I've looked for some magic, like lifting. I've done one working set since my college b-ball days. I get strong when I'm consistent. Corey says it's difficult to eat a baked potato after competition workout. And Train to Live. Good point, Corey. It's all about replacing glycogen with all that fiber, either pre-post workout or competition. Without all that fiber. Yeah, I when I was competing, I couldn't eat at all. Even like in my teenage swimming days, I could not keep the food down. So yeah, I think you have to do what you have to do. And part of their philosophy is that everything is a work in progress. As long as you're working toward what it should be, then you're on the right track. It doesn't have to be perfection from the start. If you read through their stuff on their website and I think with an athlete, you have to do what works for you. If you can't eat a baked potato, you need something to give you energy. You have to do something. So Yeah. But I'm glad he came on. I'm glad we got to talk about it. I've kind of avoided nutrition talk for a while just because of some things that have been going on in my life and trying to figure things out myself. But maybe I need to get more into it again, and try to understand for myself better, and maybe talk about the struggles I've been having. But I need to be in the right headspace to do that. So maybe we'll do that on future shows. I eat like a monk 7 days a week. Comp days are a whole other thing in of themselves. Meredith Jones, when you have another event coming up, wouldn't liquid nutrition protein shake be the way to go versus candy? Seems hard on the stomach. See, I think it depends. Like if you're doing a summer event when it's 95 degrees, a protein shake doesn't always work. To me, it feels like it's curdling in my stomach. So my wife would make these oatmeal, peanut butter, and honey power balls, she would call them. And that's what would get me through a competition. I would eat a couple of those between events. It felt like I was doing better than eating gummy bears, but still getting some calories, some fat back into my system, without it upsetting my stomach and wanting to puke in the middle of a burpee. But I was just a ham and egger, as they say in the boxing business, doing local comps. So, Jay Birch, are you still working with Cheryl? I've not been working with Cheryl. And yeah, I'm going to keep that to myself for now. Cause I have to do some things behind the scenes with that, before I talk anymore. But none of this was about Cheryl, just so you know. This was about all about me. Just so you know. So yeah. Jeremy Eats World. Curious what you mean by being in the right headspace to talk about. It's not about talking about my diet, Jeremy. It's talking about what got me in a place where I needed just to try some different things. So it's not about the diet itself. It's about the other things around it, that I just needed to take a step back. So Holly says applesauce or baby food pouches. Yeah, if you can handle those things. So there is that. We also got a are you still working out at home or at the gym? So I was working out at the gym until just about a week ago. And then my wife and I sat down. She is now recovered from her knee surgery. She wants to do workouts. So we're working out in the garage gym together for at least the summer, early fall. And what we're going to do is take the money that I was spending for the gym and upgrading some equipment in my gym. So I have it in my garage for the summer. And then after the early fall, I'm going to go back to the gym. And one of the reasons I left Polaris like a week ago was one, for my wife to work out with her. The other thing is because of this show, I switched to working out in the evenings and I'd lost a lot of the community feel. So I've got to figure out, I may go to Rudy Berger's gym, which is about the same distance the other side, because they work out in the evening, and do that. But right now we're just using the money I would use for monthly to upgrade. I'm going to put a rower in my garage, and I'm going to get some boxes and some things to upgrade my gym at home. So yes to Rudy and Lynette. Yeah. And the owners of the gym, Mike and Caitlin, are awesome as well. So, and it's a lot smaller too. It's a lot more intimate. It's a lot more community friendly, especially in the evenings. So that's kind of the plan right now. So, just to hit some news, because I do have an appointment this afternoon, and that is, if you didn't see, we have some breaking news. Water is wet, the sky is blue, and Tia Claire Toomey is going to the CrossFit Games. Those were the breaking pieces of news yesterday. Tia is back. I don't think any of us are surprised at this point. I think she left that door open by her wording. I think Amanda Hari put it beautifully when she pointed out that she did not say she was retiring, and she's coming back for number 8. I joked with Carolyn yesterday that it had to be Carolyn's marketing plan of the 8 on its side for the Toomey to show the infinity sign that she is forever the GOAT. So she's coming back. Andrew Sten, different topic. Heard on Boys Interrupted that Christy Ermo moved to Boise. Honestly, Andrew, since she sold the gym, she's not in the gym as much as she used to be. I am betting they probably bought a house out there, and they have a house here in Westerville. Because I've seen them do workouts on their Instagram, on their YouTube, in the garage gym here in Columbus. And I know they're always on the road, traveling outdoors, doing mountain things, hiking, all that kind of stuff. So maybe they have a place in both spots. And I know that her and Justin are close. They have the same agent. Justin used to drop into Polaris all the time when he was here for the Arnold. So I know that they're tight, and I don't know exactly. I haven't talked to them in probably, since they sold the gym. Just saw them in passing. So, also yesterday, Brent was on Rich. We were looking forward to that. And they made it seem like Angelo was really going to press Brent on the demands. I don't think it ever got to that pressing. I do think that he did address them, and he made the comment that no matter what they put out as PFAA, they were going to be criticized for what that was. And I disagree with that. I think that if you would have gotten your contingent of athletes together and talked it through and came up with a group decision as a large group and what that message should be, and then made that message, then I think it would have went over better. But I think what happened is you thought you had the backing of the athletes. You acted like you had the backing of the athletes. You made a determination with 8 of you, and then it didn't fly, and you had nothing to back that. I wasn't critical of what you said if you had reasons behind it. I was critical of how you did it and how you were trying to represent the entire athlete base with just a handful of you. I still think you're laying blame possibly in the wrong direction, but the world may never know because nobody's letting us know what happened there. The other thing that he did say on there that I do like is they're coming up with a standard movement database. As someone who covers the sport, trying to guess what standard different movements are at a competition when you're there live and you haven't seen the athlete briefing, and you're trying to make definitive statements whether a guy was moving correctly or incorrectly, and you have no clue, is so freaking hard and so frustrating when you're there in person. Having a movement standard book that everybody could follow, and if you know they're following that book for that competition, makes perfect sense to me. And I like that at first they're not mandating it or trying to get it mandated, but just making it available to use. And you can just copy and paste it to explain the movement standard without having to rewrite it for every competition. I think it will grab hold if it's available to competitions to do that. And it's already been vetted and tried and makes it much easier for them. I think that is a step in the right direction. And that's a step to help them get some support again after what happened this last fall. I understand the AFJ has been working with the PFAA on movement standards for over a year. It's a lot of work. I'm sure that it is. But even if it starts small and it grows and we get more and more movements into that database as we move along, I think that is fine. I think it's fine if you just had the 10 most popular movements in a book to start, and then you add as you go, and then it keeps getting bigger and bigger. I think it's fine. It doesn't have to be a completed project for it to be out there for everybody to use. Back on the demands, Doug Reed, that's 100% projection from Brent. He was trying to steelman his argument position. I agree. Train to Live asks the question, if I were a betting man, I would bet that Alex takes the invite. But I do not have any firsthand knowledge as to whether she will or not. I did hear something from Jake that he believes she's taking the invite. He is her husband. He knows her better than anybody. But I also know that Justin Kotler feels like she has a long, great future ahead of her and doesn't want her doing anything that could harm that. And I think that is the crucial piece that we don't know. I think it's going to be getting with doctors right before that decision has to be made and having that decision made then. Other than that, I thought the Brent thing was somewhat entertaining, but I didn't really get a lot out of it other than the movement standards. And I don't think there was a lot of pressing on the demands. I wish they would have taken it a step further and asked what support he had when they put that out there, who actually was in the decision-making process of that demand letter. Those are the things I'd like to know from them. They want transparency on the other side. We didn't get very much transparency from them in how that demand was created. So, one last thing I'm going to talk about, and Doug and Judy Reed, if you're in here, you may want to close your ears. I watched the Surviving Ohio State documentary on Max. That was one of the most troubling documentaries I've ever watched in my life. It is about a doctor who was the team doctor for several sports at Ohio State and ended up sexually abusing and raping hundreds of male victims at Ohio State. And this happened from the late 80s through the mid 90s. The doctor actually ended up dying in the mid 2000s. in 2016 or 2017, when the Larry Nassar incident was happening at Michigan State, some of these athletes and victims saw what was happening with these young ladies and realized that what had happened to them was sexual abuse, and they started to come forward, and then it started to just unravel in droves. Yes, D. Reed, it's Dr. Richard Strauss. I was trying to remember the name as I was talking. And so it got uncovered much after the fact, and he would actually target Midwestern boys who wouldn't even know what a real exam was that he would be giving, and made them feel like this was a normal exam that they should be receiving. And the boys didn't know any better, and they interview them and they talk about how they weren't sure if this was really abuse at the time. And Ohio State made some really bad missteps along the way when complaints came forward from the fencing coach. He was then promoted to the normal hospital where the students go to get treated. And so then it became not just athletes that were victims, it became regular students that started to become victims. I think it was in 2018, Ohio State finished an investigation where they came down that 174 victims were raped by this man, and estimated over 8,000 students were sexually abused. Those numbers are astronomical compared to the other cases in the Big Ten alone. We had the Jerry Sandusky case at Penn State. We had the Larry Nassar case at Michigan State. Both of those universities admitted wrongdoing and settled with the victims. Penn State's victims received $1.5 million per victim. The Michigan State victims received $1.25 million per victim. Ohio State has not settled, has not admitted guilt, and has only offered $250,000 per victim. It made my stomach flip so bad. I live here in Columbus. I live 15 minutes from Ohio State University. The fact that university and how big it is and how prominent it is in this state and how much money it makes year over year in their sports department is dragging this out for those victims is reprehensible. Train to Live, it's on Max. It's the HBO Max app that you can stream on, and it's called Surviving Ohio State. I hope and pray to God that Ohio State comes to their senses and settles with these victims so they're not dragged through all this year over year over year. Ohio State has taken this all the way to the Supreme Court. The district court, they wanted to get it thrown out because of statute of limitations. And the courts found that because Ohio State hid what had happened, they were part of the reason why it took so long for it to come out, because they hid the fact that it was happening. So it got thrown out by the courts, and the Supreme Court refused to hear it because of that and said that the statute of limitations is not a factor here because they hid it for so long. And so this has started in 2016. We're at 2025, and these victims have been dragged through the mud through all of this. I hope that Ohio State comes to its senses, settles these suits, and these men can move on with their lives. Many of them got their scholarships revoked if they threatened to say anything. Some of them tried to say something, got their scholarships revoked, couldn't go to school anymore. It is appalling what happens. It's about a 2-hour documentary. It is very well done. It has all the facts explained out, but what the hell happened is just mind-boggling. You are correct, Jody. So many young men must have been affected. The OSU athletic department has $254.9 million in revenue, but an operational budget of $292.7 million. Unsure where all the money goes. Yeah, there are money facts that are brought up at the end of the documentary that I don't want to misquote, so that's why I'm not using them. But the revenue from the athletic departments, and I don't remember the year time frame, is in the billions. And I'm a Penn State fan. I've been to Michigan State. Ohio State is making more money than those two universities, and they found a way to pay their victims in the millions what they deserved for what they went through. So if Ohio State's going to try to claim poor now, give me a break. T. Reed says, wait, you like PSU? Yes, Doug. I grew up in Pennsylvania. My uncle was a graduate of Penn State, took me to a bunch of games when I was a kid. So I just became a Penn State fan, and I've been that my whole life. Through thick and thin, through all the jokes, through all the ridicule because of the Jerry Sandusky situation, I admit what happened there was just as bad, needed to be dealt with just as much. But yeah. Probably be broke after the retro NIL payments. Yeah. I'm guessing, though, that maybe the victims deserve the money before the NIL deals, since Ohio State had the highest paid team in college football last year, and they won the national championship. So there you go. Pay money to make money. I'm going to leave with this on a little brighter note. I did see on Get Up this morning that the NCAA has made a deal with, I think, Venmo and PayPal, where all NIL payments have to be done through those two apps so that the money can be tracked much more than just like cash payments or check payments. But they're going to have to make all their payments through those two apps to the athletes for NIL. And I found that like an interesting switch in what college sports are doing with that, so that it can be tracked electronically, how much is going to who and where and when. I mean, there's no rules around it right now, so they can do whatever the hell they want. But I do like the fact that at least it's being tracked somewhere. And so when they do put some rules in place, it might be able to be tracked a lot better. So Lito's super late to the game, just popped in to say hi. Lito, you showed up for the bad part. So go back to the beginning if you want to listen to anything. That was the fun part. Well, with that, guys, we'll call it a day. I have an appointment this afternoon that I have to get to. So going to deal with that. And then I'll be back tomorrow for lunch with the Clydesdale on a Friday. And yeah, Lito or Train to Live. Got to run, but Scott, thank you for always doing your lunch shows. I'm recovering from surgery, and it's been the best part of my day. Awesome. We love having you here. Ciao. All right, guys. You knuckleheads get back to work. I'll see you all tomorrow on Lunch with the Clydesdale. Bye, guys.